Welcome to the Cat Show. I'm your host, Dane McGrandon. In real life, I'm a video producer, special effects artist, and inventor. I'm also a cat owner. And with that comes the responsibility of litter box maintenance. You don't want litter box odors to become a problem in your house. If you own more than one cat, sometime or another, they are a problem. But it doesn't have to be that bad. With a little bit of creative venting, you can end the smell. Today's topic is dedicated to just that. Through my work in special effects, I've come up with 11 ways to rid the smell of litter box odor. I will demonstrate each one of these step by step using common materials. I've chosen a house built in 1885, which does have some recent plumbing updates. So you'll get a mix of the new and the old systems, which will allow you to find a method of venting your litter box that'll work in your own house. So I'll just lose my coat here and get to work. Our goal here is to show you a number of different methods and let you make the choice as to which one you want to use in your own house. Your house itself may dictate what methods you can and can't use. As it turns out, in the house we are shooting this video in, we are able to do every method that we have come up with to go into this video in this one house alone. The way in which this video is laid out is we have 4 different sections. The first one is to make you familiar with the parts that you can commonly find in hardware stores that you can use in ventilating a cat litter box. The second part, we're actually going to go to the different locations in the house where a litter box can be placed and ventilated, and we're going to show the installation of these systems. The third section is going to provide you with a list of suppliers so that you can have a hope at finding the parts, that many of which are laying around our facility because we are a video production company that does special effects. You may not be able to find everything, so we have put together a list of suppliers. Some are mail order, and then some are just some general hints and comments of the type of stores you can go to find the parts. The fourth section, we're going to make some nicer looking enclosures, so if the look is your concern, if you have a litter box in an area such as a public area of your house or a main bathroom, and you want the ventilation system to look nice, then we've come up with a couple methods for covers that, again, can also be easily made out of inexpensive materials, but takes a little longer to do. Now, the focus of this video, throughout the section dealing with the installation, we are dealing with the simplest and most inexpensive methods as far as the pipes used, the blowers used, and any kind of the fittings. Some of these do not necessarily look beautiful, but if your concern is getting the job done, and especially if you have a cat box that is located in a basement or somewhere in a house that you don't normally go, if you don't mind the appearance, the solution is getting rid of the smell, and we will end the smell. The parts that you need to ventilate your cat box, many of these parts are found at a hardware store. We've got a number of them here to show you so you can get the idea of what are the kind of parts that you do use. Number one, most substantial part is duct tape. You're all familiar with it. It's the silver duct tape. Comes $3 to $4 a roll. One roll would certainly be sufficient. And this is if your concern is not cosmetic. This is going to be used to attach things together in the simplest and most expensive way. Another very useful piece is this dryer ducting. It's a white 4-inch flexible dryer pipe. It's actually fairly heat resistant, which is not a requirement to this, but this is around $3. $3 a roll, 8-foot piece. It could easily be attached to some of the fans we're going to show you. Also going along and attaching to this is a 4-inch pipe adapter. This is for going over a drain on the floor and attaching standard PVC plumbing drain pipe to it. Now we're using this because it widens out a little bit, and the advantage to that is if you want to cover up the vents on the top of the litter box in order to collect the smell, the air inside the box as wide as possible, this is the way to do it. And it actually looks fairly nice. And it's got some holes in it so that you can easily mount it using a couple of screws. Or you can glue it on, whichever you want. Okay, another piece that we use, this is a underground black plastic drain pipe adapter. This is used primarily for adapting a 4-inch to a 3-inch size drain. But we're going to use it for something else in ventilating. Standard PVC fittings are another thing. This adapts 2 different size pipes together. And then most important to this system are the blowers. Now these were laying around the house. This is an old blower from a stove this would be the kind of blower that you would find in a range hood kind of thing. And this runs on 110 volts. It's actually fairly quiet. And you can see it's fairly large. You can see the area where the fan is. And so that literally pulls the air right out of the box and then down into a tube. So we would need to attach a tube to this as the basic idea. One example of that kind of tube is this sump pump hose. This is very, very inexpensive, around $2.50 for a 24-foot roll. So that'll be long enough to reach just about anywhere in your house. So the basic idea, if you will, in doing these ventilation systems is finding ways in which you can adapt this existing part to this existing part. Here's another blower. This is also known as these are called squirrel cage blowers. They've got the blades that spin sideways instead of towards you, the viewer. This came from a slide projector. And this was a surplus part, cost about $3 from a surplus store. You will get a list of suppliers, surplus suppliers that sell things like this. Again, this has a wide opening, and this can fit right on top of the cat litter box. And then your task, again, is then to adapt a hose to fit this. And there's a couple different size hoses you can make. And again, using our duct tape we talked about, this is very easy to make the connection onto the hose if you're not concerned with making it very, very beautiful. If that doesn't matter to you, that's an easy thing to do. Some other parts we have, one that I'm going to tell you about now is very, very important, and that is a timer. You don't necessarily want this to run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I mean, there's a couple things that will happen. If you're using a powered system, one that uses these blowers, you're going to use up a little more electricity, and that's a fact. And it's probably not necessarily, if you think about a bathroom fan in a typical human's bathroom, is the fan running 24 hours a day? No. It's usually when we use the toilet. Now, the toilet system is a little bit more advanced than a cat litter box because we've got the fluid and it does in fact flush, which the cat box can't do, which is why we're making this video, because they don't flush. But one thing we do recommend is that you get a 24-hour timer, which has the pull-out time tabs. This one is graduated to every 30 minutes. And set it so it's not running all the time. If you know your cat's litter times, then that's the appropriate time to set this. But they're very important because you don't want them to run continuously. Some other parts that are common to this are, some more PVC fittings. This is an elbow piece. This is a little adapter piece that I put together. This is made out of 2 actual PVC pipes. This is a 1-inch pipe going into a 1-inch joint piece, which is used to attach 2 1-inch pipes. Well, it turns out with a little sanding that fits into an 1 1/4 piece, and then that 1 1/4 piece will fit into an 1 1/4 joiner. So that fits right in there. This is 1-inch PVC, and we notice that fits right into this standard drain hose. You can add duct tape along there to hold that on, and then that's all ready to go. And then on this end, we can stick that on there, and we could put duct tape around this to completely seal it. And that's really as simple as some of these systems are. There are 3 basic methods that we're going to use among the 10 different ways of ventilating the cat box. And these methods vary by expense, the amount of electricity they take, or in some cases they don't take any electricity, and how easy they are to set up. The first method is called forced air, and that's using a blower like this, a blower that you're going to install either on top of the cat box or somewhere in the piping system. So you are literally pumping the air through the box. The second method, which is very simple and fast, easy to install, That is making use of existing fans and existing ventilation systems that you have currently in your house, such as a window fan or the exhaust vent in a bathroom. The third method, which is the one I like the most since it was discovered, is a totally free system. Once you have this installed, it'll cost you $3, $5 or $6 if you make it look nice, but at its basic level, very inexpensive, and it makes use of the exhaust gases going up the chimney from either your hot water heater or your furnace, or both if they're connected. Because there, in many systems, is a continuous draft, 24 hours a day, every day of the year, from the pilot lights, and especially when they run. But there's always a draft going up the chimney, either a fast or a slow draft. Well, the way these are designed, you'll see later, they have actually made the allowance for an extra air to go up along with it. And so you can make use of that extra air as it rises to create a partial vacuum. And these are amazing systems because they'll continue to vent. They cost you no more because you're already burning the pilot lights. You're already burning the gas in the furnace. There's not a direct connection between the thermostat and this extra port. It simply is going to suck air through the litter box, and that'll also help to get rid of the smell. This first technique we're going to show you, this is going to be one of the simplest ones. This is the one anyone can do. We're going to be venting the litter box out the window. Now what we're using here, this is just a plain industrial squirrel cage blower. This was picked up through one of the surplus catalogs that you will receive at the end of the video. It's a fairly quiet but high volume fan, and this is built onto wooden frame for another purpose, but we're going to just demonstrate how easy this is to hook up. We're going to set the fan like this just so you can see it. We'll turn it like this. What we're doing, we're using a combination of some tape, some PVC fittings, and this black sump pump drain hose, which is very, very inexpensive. And the way we're going to make the connection is we're going to add one more piece. This is approximately a 2-inch long piece that we then can glue, preferably, in place. So with this particular blower, it turns out the opening here, this fits in pretty good. And so then we need to tape it in place. So this is just a simple way of making an adaptation between one opening and another, because these pipes do not go with these blowers. So you need to come up with some easy way to do it. And this is a pretty simple way. This is a very standard cover for a litter box, and it has vents. You know why they put vents on there? That's so that the smell can come out. That's why you have bought this video. So what we've done to this, and I'll undo this, we've just taken a piece of cardboard. You can use anything you want. Taken a piece of cardboard, and this is actually a shirt box, the cardboard from a shirt box. And we shoved this in to block off most of the vent because we want the air to go in the front. And so then through this area here, we left the remainder of them exposed. Taped a little bit up here, but for the most part this is wide open. So we lay our blower right over that so it sucks the air out of the box. We take the drain hose and stick it out the window. And just bend it down and hook it on. And then we're going to take a little tape and reinforce this so it stays on. Very, very important that you make sure that these connections are sealed, because if the air blows and it's not sealed, then some of the air is going to come out into your house, which of course it already does without this. So we hook this up, center this over here. Notice this is not permanently attached. The reason for that is you want to be able to clean the litter boxes. So you don't want to have this glued on. You want to be able to take something off. And so that way you just set it on there. It's fairly heavy. It's going to stay in place. So all we do is turn it on, and it's going to vent the smell right out of the house. If you don't like the idea of running the hose out the window for security reasons, you can do a permanent installation into the home plumbing system. Now, in this case, this is how ours is actually hooked up. We've got a pipe which runs down into a level underneath us. And so basically how you do this, in our fortunate case, we have an access panel around the edge of the bathtub we can remove. So once this is pulled away, we're able to run the hose down into this cavity behind here, put a hole in the floor, which is invisible because it's behind the casing, and then we connect it to the plumbing underneath. Here's a view of how the whole thing is hooked up. We have the litter box sitting on the floor, got the blower. The hose runs down over a bathtub frame into the access space underneath. We've drilled a hole. In this case, it's inside of the bathtub frame. One option you may be faced with is having to drill the hole in the floor behind the cat box, going down into another level, or through the floor of a closet. There are a lot of ways in which you can do that. But we simply stuck the pipe, flexible hosing down through the hole in the floor. So if this pipe is an inch and a quarter, we drill a hole an inch and a half, so we have a little bit of slack and it fits in real well. The second half of our system, we run the pipe down through the floor. We now need to find a place to splice into. Now, it is very standard on plumbing systems to have a couple of extra ports somewhere. They have it in there for a purpose of testing the vacuum air seal of the system, and so they put this port in there. Have to do that. They have to have some way to splice into their equipment. At the same time, you then have the option later to add a piece of plumbing from a new sink or a new bathtub or something into this, however you want to do it. And so we can make use of this to vent the cat box. So what we've done here, this is a 3-inch adapted down to an inch and a half. So that elbows upward into an inch and a half pipe, and then one more inch and a half adapter, and so this is an elbow joint. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pull our pipe down, we're going to attach it to that. We then grab the end of the pipe, and we pull it down, get just enough to attach. There we go. Now we have enough to reach this. Now we can do a combination of things. We can simply take it and stick this in, and that fits fairly tightly, and we can tape it up. Or if we want to go with a slightly more permanent seal, we found that this 1-inch pipe fit really well into this drain hose. So we could take that, and this is our conglomeration adapter that we've shown earlier. And we can just take some PVC glue and then stick that on and reinforce that with some tape. And so then in conclusion, we have the pipe coming down from upstairs, and it connects into this extra addition input port onto the plumbing system. This, for reference, is actually the pipe that comes from the upstairs bathroom. So this is the main drain from the toilet, bathtub, and sink. But the top portions of these pipes are vented to the outside. So further down this pipe is a jack that goes up to the roof so that we can vent the whole system. So we have both the smell going out, and we have the air that comes in for equalizing the pressure so that the water runs freely. So even though water is occasionally running down here, it does not run back up the pipe, and there's always the ability to have airflow going up because this pipe is never filled fully all the way to the sides. It's usually half of it. So we're always going to be able to have airflow going up to ventilate the cat box in this method. If you happen to be in a house or your access to any of the drain chutes is very limited, and you simply do not have the extra T-joint on here, you can put one in. Now, I know it's a little bit more work. These pieces cost around $3. And so what would be involved here is making a cut here and there and squeezing this piece in, and then through a combination of joints, then you could recreate this type thing. So you could then vent it that way. If one doesn't exist, you could put one in. Another method, which I don't recommend as much, would be to literally drill a hole somewhere near the top. But if you use any of these methods, you're going to find that's yet one more way in which you can ventilate the smell. Okay, here's another method where we're going to make use of an existing airflow. In this case, it's a bathroom fan. Now, this particular one had 2 light bulbs in it. We've removed one of the bulbs because we're going to make space to put in this plastic dryer vent. up through there. But we have to make it stay in without falling down. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a flange. This comes along with some of the dryer kits, and this fits along the aluminum dryer tubing that would go outside of your house. So to hook this up here, just pull this down. These are springed. Stick the dryer vent up. You want to pull a little extra down so that you've got something to work with, so it's easier. And then you want to actually put this piece of flashing down here instead of up above the ceiling. So it just pulls right through there. It's fairly tight. So what you want to do is add tape. Just a little reinforcing tape to keep the tube attached to this plastic flashing. And we work it back through. And we want to make sure we reposition this so the spotlight is still centered, because we don't want to melt our plastic. And there we go. This is in place, hangs down, it's secure, and now it's ready to be attached. Okay, the next step is we're going to attach the hose to this PVC adapter. And this is a drain adapter. What do they call it exactly? This is by Plastic Oddities. And this is technically called a 3-inch or 4-inch pipe adapter, and this is so that you can run a pipe down a drain. This would clamp over the floor. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to stick it on there. But to save you a little money here, we're going to use rubber bands to hold this in place instead of the actual pipe clamps, which you could use, the hose clamps, but they're going to cost a little bit more money than 2 rubber bands. So we'll take this and slide this over. And this does fit fairly tight. And we'll get the rubber bands down to where they'll do some good. There's one. And there's 2. So now that's going to stay on pretty good. So then all we do is take this and set it over the vent holes on the cat box. We can pivot this so it fits right. And it's fairly heavy plastic, so you don't necessarily need to screw it on if you don't want to, although you can if you want to put a couple screws in here, one on one side, one on the other. Now that's going to draw air up through the vent, and that we're using the existing fan in the bathroom to power this. Down in your basement, there are a lot of opportunities to vent your cat box. The easiest of which, and the cheapest, and it's the best method we were talking about in the video as far as saving money, makes use of a dryer vent pipe, roll of tape, pair of scissors, and we are making use of the furnace's draft, which goes up the chimney all the time. This is a fantastic way of ventilating your cat box. Basically, you're going to be running the smell up the chimney through the furnace pipe. And it's making use of the draft, the natural draft that occurs in most furnaces and hot water heaters. And basically, that's the draft caused by the pilot light. Most furnaces have, or as far as the chimney systems, have an additional pipe or an additional port. Sometimes it's on the bottom. It's often capped off, but it is there in many cases for you to. The whole point is that if you wanted to add another furnace or a wood stove or another hot water heater or any other appliance, they've got the port built in so that you can easily attach it by removing the cap and putting it on. But for most people, you don't end up using it. If you've got a hot water heater and a furnace, that'll do it. The furnace is running with a pilot light. I can put my hand up here right now and I feel a draft. Now the furnace isn't running, but the pilot light is. It's just a very small flame, but it's enough to create 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, even through the summer, a draft that goes up the chimney. Now if that's always moving, what does that tell you? you're paying for it with the pilot light, but other than that, it's free. So what you're going to end up doing is having your cat box on the floor, your litter box, right on the floor next to the furnace or somewhere nearby. And then remember, once you install this, it runs for free. Take a pair of scissors and then just make little cuts in the pipe. And the reason we're doing this is you need to bend it out, make it just a little bit wider at this point so that you can slip it around the furnace pipe. So we widen out, stick it on. Then we take a little bit of duct tape, since we are using ducting. Tape that on. I'm going to go all the way around. Now that's on there. We're ready for making the attachment onto the litter box. We're going to cut about 2 inches back. We're going to cut this in about 6 places. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the surface of the litter box, you've got, if you can see here, we've got paper over these vents, because this whole area is vented. So the idea is that the air goes in and the smell goes into your house. That's how they're designed. So we're going to cover up these vents because we don't want any air to go out of this. So we've got an area here which is about 4 inches. Diameter of the pipe here is about 4 inches. We have to stretch this just a little bit to get it to touch. Then we're going to take our duct tape, tape it down. Here's another method which uses a blower, and in this case we're making use of an old vent pipe from a sink. Now, in case you don't know exactly how plumbing systems are hooked up, this will give you a very good idea with this pulled apart like this one is. In all plumbing systems, you've got the drain from whether it's a sink or a toilet or a shower. You have the drain that goes down into another pipe which eventually goes out of the house, but you've got your primary drain pipe. And then in order to prevent the smell from coming back into the house and to allow the drains to flow faster, you have a connection to the roof, which is a vent. And this pipe connects here, in this case, via a T-jack. It has been removed in order to install the cat box ventilation system. But the pipe would connect here, and so the whole idea is that with the airflow coming from the roof, you have the ability for this drain water to run without bubbling and gurgling. And at the same time, any smells in the pipe will be vented out through this pipe. Now this sink is no longer used in this case because we're now using it for a workbench. So voila, we have a very easy access for hooking up to the drain system. And there's actually 2 places right here we can do it. And we'll show you the 2 right now. We've already shown you earlier how to attach this plastic pipe to the blower. So we're just going to go with the same blower. And it's just a matter of laying it right on top of our litter box. And then we've got a little bit of the black hose here. This is an 1.5 inch plumbing pipe. Turns out that the 1.25 inch sump pump drain hose fits right inside there. So that fits in real tight. And all we do is turn on our fan, put it on the timer as we suggested, and also having it in the basement helps. But this way it's going to eliminate the smell from your house. It's going to be pumped through and out and up, and you will smell it as much as you smell your current house vent system, which is not at all. Alternatively, if you are in many houses, you will not have access to the vent system. We are very fortunate that we have that here, but very often you will have the ability to splice into an existing drain pipe. In this case, it would be a matter of removing a pipe that went to either something else that you're not using or to the vent system. But if you would choose, I can put my hand here, and I feel air blowing out of this drain because with this sink, it has not been used in many, many years. So all of the water in the trap under the floor has dried up, and so we are no longer able to prevent the smell from underneath from coming up, but that also means we've got free airspace into the main plumbing line. So in this case, we are also using the same type of fitting. This is an 1.5 inch plumbing T, and our drain hose fits tightly right in there. Very, very tight. In fact, it's perfectly sealed. There's no need to even tape that up. Now, I should mention, if you don't have the right types of fittings, notice how easily these are fitting together, you may have to get some adapters. You may have a pipe like this, or you may have a pipe like that. So you may need to get some adapters in order to make this stuff fit, because they aren't designed to fit together. They are designed for different purposes. I should mention that if you do uncap a pipe like this and you feel a very large amount of air blowing out, then it's probably not a good idea to hook up to that, because what that means is that if you do run your blower intermittently as opposed to all the time, when you're not running it, you could have sewage air blowing back into your basement, and that would be even worse, or the rest of your house. So we really advise to try to go into the vent that goes to the roof of the house as opposed to down a drain, because you could run into problems there. Another method of running the ventilation down a drain, if that is one of the only methods available to you, is to make use of where a toilet used to be connected. And this is one that's been gone for probably 20 years. And so you've got a port that goes down into the underworld drain system, and you can certainly run air and smells down through that. One thing to point out again is that if you're going to use this method, you're going to have to be using a continually running fan. Now, there are a number of types that are out there, ventilation fans that are designed for continuous use, and they don't take much power, and there really isn't much of a problem with doing that. But my personal preference is that I'm always afraid of fire, so as a result of that, I always put things on a timer. But you have to gauge your own system. If you open this drain up and maybe do a couple tests, do a couple days worth of tests, uncover it, see if you've got any draft coming out of this, as opposed to a backdraft is what I'm referring to here. If you don't, then you're probably safe to go on the intermittent running fan operating cycle. So to do this, our parts for here, we've got a caulk gun, we have a little attachment adapter to go onto a toilet drain, and this plastic piece shown earlier, and we've got our plastic dryer ducting. Again, you could use the metal as well. Okay, this particular type of a fixture used to have some screws. There's only one left now because they've all rusted out, and so we're going to have to use some caulk as the main adhesive. You want to caulk it anyway, but what we do is just to hold it, we're going to sit it like this, and we're going to seal this with caulk. And then carefully turn it upside down, position it how you want it. You've got one screw left. You want to line it up with that screw, center it over the hole, push it down. Okay, now we're free to attach our hose. Now again, we're using rubber bands because that'll save you money, because you'll spend around $1 for the actual clamps. That's right, down over there. But now we are connected. Final step is to attach our blower together with the cat litter box. Now I'm going to show you how to hook up two different blowers, just to give you some idea how you might do this in case you don't find exactly the same one I have here. I'm going to show you two. This particular one, which also came from a surplus store, this is a 220 volt blower, and this is the kind that would be used in some kind of industrial ventilation. It turns out it does run on 110 volts. In fact, it runs much cooler and much quieter. It's much safer to run continuously. It is rated, it says on the side, thermally protected. That means if it overheats, it'll shut off. And it also says continuous, which means you can keep on using it if you want to run it for forever. So again, notice it just sets right on top of there, completely covers up the vents so that it sucks. In other words, it covers the entire ventilation area. I need to make one quick comment about electrical hookup and blowers. Sometimes when you find a surplus blower, you're going to find out that the wires are not attached. So that means you're going to have to attach a cord to them, such as this one here. The only correct way to put on wires is with lock nuts. Once you twist the two together lightly, and put on standard wire lock nuts. And if you've got a green wire, which is the ground, such as this, you'll want to do that one too. Do the corresponding green wire on the motor. Once we've tested it and know that it works, we can go back to hooking up the air duct. So then what we find is that with the dryer, standard dryer pipe, the 4-inch plastic pipe or the metal, you can fit this PVC adapter in here. This is a 3 to 2-inch standard PVC pipe connector. Look at that, just slides right in. Very, very simple. And so then once you've done that, you'll want to add some tape to hold it in place. I'll just put a little on here at the moment. But you get the idea. You want to tape this all the way around. The 2-inch end of this PVC adapter fits fairly well in there, and you don't have quite a perfect air seal, but if you use enough duct tape, you can completely seal this. We're not going to go all the way around right here, because I'm going to show you a different motor, but this basically is very simple to do. You can completely seal this. Use enough tape, and then this is it. This system is ready to go. Okay, going back to our other blower, the one we're using most of the time, it turns out that this 2-inch end of this 2 to 3-inch PVC adapter fits over this. The reason we are expanding this out is because we're using a wider pipe, because it's going down a toilet drain, and we want to make sure that we're the same diameter as that, and that's an easy and very secure fit. So just take this, tape it on around the edge of the blower, output end, and it is sealed. And then we take our dryer vent pipe, and that just slides right over very easily. And you can tape this on if you want around here. That's what I would suggest. And it's just a matter of turning it down so that the input side of the blower is over the vents on the cat litter box. And then that runs down into a toilet drain. Very, very easy to do. Okay, there's another type of system you can use for venting if you don't want to go through the work of using a blower. It's an existing air system that many people have, a window fan. Take the white plastic laundry duct and hook it up to the top of the cat box. Take the other end, and you're going to take a little metal curtain hook. You're going to bend that so that you make it hook shape at a 90-degree angle from the main surface. So instead of inserting this into a curtain, we're going to stick this in the top between some rubber bands. Just put some tape on there to hold that hook on, and you really only need one. And then hook it on somewhere in the middle of the blade path, not in the center of the fan, but if you go right along anywhere in the main area where the fan spins, you're going to get the most pull. Now this is not a large amount of pull, but if you turn the fan on, we want a low setting, and let's go to a high setting. We're just going to see how much air is actually flowing through the tube. It is indeed pulling air through the tube. Look at how much suction this has. Pulls it right in, right up against it. And it'll pull the whole toilet paper right into the fan. Go on. And all the way through to the other side. So even with this 4-inch space, you have a certain amount of suction. Certainly as much as you're going to get from a furnace draft or a draft from a hot water heater going up the chimney. So this little simple technique, if you do routinely use a fan in a window, then you're all set to ventilate the cat box by simply attaching this hose up and plugging the other end into the top of the box on one of those adapters. Up on my attic steps here, the very roof of the house has little air vents, and they're all over. This one happens to be very convenient in my house. So we continue with our tube. We extend it up, and we're doing the same thing with the little hook from the curtain. And all we're going to do is get this up near here, and we may want to bend this hook a little bit sideways like that so that we can hook it into the framework. There we go. So now we've got that facing up there, so as the air blows out through the attic, it's going to cause a little bit of suction, which will suck air from the cat box without a fan. And in this configuration, you'd be hooking up the other end of this pipe to the cat box like this. We're up in the attic again, and we're going to install this to the roof vent. Do is we pull our hose through the hole we've made, and then we hook it on using the same kind of a hook which we've done to the window fan. You just fit it up here and hook the hook around the framework. You want to leave a little bit of space here. You don't want it flush up against the roof of the cap because you're not going to get any ventilation. So you just want it hanging down a little bit. And so what happens is, because of the drafts, especially in the summertime, you'll have warm air constantly flowing up through the hole and out. So you've got ventilation constantly through the attic. So if you have a low pressure fan blowing air through your tube, like this configuration, we're going to find out that the air will be just pushed through here and naturally blow out through the vent in the roof. The final method of cat box venting uses a combination of the existing airflow that blows up through the heat of the attic and its corresponding convection venting, and the actual heating of the tube which the cat box is attached to, at least that portion of the tube that goes through the attic. Instead of using the plastic kind, we're going to be using a metal one. This is aluminum dryer ducting. You can actually make this a little bit more heat absorbing by adding vanes to it, metal vanes like you would find around a fireplace where they've attached vanes. You can buy these vanes at fireplace stores, these fins that stick out, and they radiate heat. Well, in the same way, you can use them to absorb heat. But the main principle is that we're going to take, instead of the plastic, an aluminum pipe. I'm going to run that up to the roof vent. Hook that on, and so then what happens is, as the attic heats up, and in case you're unaware of this, many attics get to a temperature of 110 degrees. That is not uncommon, some even hotter. The blacker the tiles on the roof or the shingles, the hotter it gets. So then this tube heats up, therefore the air inside it heats up and goes straight out the tube amplifying the partial vacuum, which is already created by the convection of the rest of the heat in the attic. Now, this will cause, during the daytime and partly during the night, slow convection of the cat box fumes. It's a very quiet system and very inexpensive to install. All you really need to do is to have several of these pieces of pipe, enough to reach through the ceiling, or up to the ceiling, through the ceiling, and then up to your roof. The higher the peak where you choose to put the vent, the more aluminum you're going to be using, and therefore the better the convection is going to work, because you're going to have a greater surface area to heat up, you're going to have more hot air. And then this will not work overnight, and it will work in only very limited extent in the wintertime. We're going to touch on this subject briefly. Concerns putting a nice cover over your motor. So if you've got your motor sitting on top of the litter box, if it's an old beat-up motor like this, and your litter box is in a more family part of your house rather than the basement, you might care not to look at this. And so there's a couple of very easy things that you can do, and we're going to just give you one example, and you can work from that. The basic idea is that you've got something that looks relatively nice that you can put over the motor to cover it. from sight. What we're using here in this example is a pot from a planter. It's a hanging pot. In the case of this blower, we've seen this before used several times during this video. The opening is on the bottom around what's called the squirrel cage enclosure. So that sets down on your litter box, and the opening for the hose is right down low. And so that means if we're going to use this particular flower pot, we're going to cut the opening down real low. To cut the hole the right size, take your hose, one end of it, and draw a circle around it for cutting. Hold it at an angle that's comfortable to work at, and take a knife or any other form you should choose and cut out the circle. You can drill it, you can saw it, but whatever you do, be careful. Now you should exercise extreme caution when cutting this out, because this plastic has a tendency to shatter. You can break the bowl, you can hurt yourself. So you really got to go careful at this. And it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. If you're cutting at the bottom, you can just cut it straight through. Again, being very careful. Now this cover can just be fit down over this with your tube coming out. And now you have a cover that looks a little bit nicer than before. We will not go into any more detail than this. You can use a variety of things that you may find from plastic, from cooking pots, cooking bowls, flower pots, things like that will work depending on the size of your blower. You'll have to get an exact measurement before you can find out that it's going to fit right down over it. One good thing I should mention about this one is it has holes in the top, in this case the bottom, and it's good because that lets heat from the motor out so that you don't start a fire. You want the motor to be able to cool itself, and so these holes will help.
Crawls out of the fireplace, and he goes to the Christmas tree, and he unloads all those gifts, and he turns around, and guess what he sees? Yes?
Cookies and milk.
Cookies and milk. And it wouldn't be a little cookie, it was 2 great big cookies. And it wasn't a little glass of milk, it was a great big glass of milk.
invented the most advanced power generator conceived. You're invited to the grand unveiling for the chance to join the research team of Dr. Franklin Stein, or to buy stock in his novel company. It's the most valuable rock collection in the world, and everybody wants it.
You've all been invited here tonight because one of you will become the proud owner of this 10,000-carat diamond.
But something strange is afoot.
The diamond. It's gone.
Nobody's leaving here until we find that diamond.
Meet your Aunt Edith. She's giving away Great Uncle Carl's fortune in rare paintings. You hope to get your favorite. But to get the house is really all the relatives are worrying about. And one of them is doing all they can to get it.
What we're doing, we're using a combination of some tape, some PVC fittings, and this black sump pump drain hose, which is very, very inexpensive. So it bounces off the center of the branch, right there. Perfect, perfect. Now this is a fairly well-constructed homemade camera track, which you can make out of 2x4s, 1x4s, and steel tubing.